Friends, how are you doing? Let's get right into the video. I got to make a little bit of an early video today because I got to take the kids to see Santa, so it's going to be a late one here for me. But the market's pretty much done. It's 3:55 right now, and we pretty much ran. So right now, the sentiment has changed again. I mean, every day there's something new with the market here, and now it looks like with the CPI reports that came out today, some other reports, but the main thing that we saw here today that was completely unexpected and that would completely change the narrative of what we were hearing. The expectation of the inflation data to come out was supposed to be horrendous. Well, actually, it was really good. Now, obviously, this is for a moment back, but still, with that, job reports and all that, still not good. So now we're in this situation, kind of stars may be aligning here for a Christmas rally. This is where, as soon as this report came out today, I had two buddies messaging me like, here we go, because this is kind of like, okay, this is something, this may be it right here. This may be the organic movement that needs to happen. So we've got this inflation data that came out that was better, way better, crazy better than expected here. And this is kind of the thing too now, and I don't know what to believe on this. It's hard for me to believe this could happen, but potential of another rate cut happening in January because job reports still not good. Job claims, not good. Unemployment, all that. But now we have inflation actually staying down here. It's like, okay, well, maybe we can just do another rate cut here in January. I don't know. It's hard to believe that Jerome Powell would sign this off because it's been like pulling teeth to get these last three we had here. The market completely, we didn't have a crazy day in the market, but the market went from like, oh my God, to, okay. So this could just kind of be the start to maybe this is what triggers a Christmas rally. Maybe this Tom Lee story that we've been hearing here, prophecy, if you will, are we about to go in it? I swear to that guy, this is why I keep saying, like, do not bet against Tom Lee right now because the guy has been right many times this year. And it's like, there's so many times this year where we looked at Tom Lee like, he said, and then it wasn't happening, and then just something happened like this, and here we go. The guy's right again. So we'll see what happens here, but this is really good news for the overall market. So this is great news for everyone. This is great news. Now, obviously, there's going to be tidal waves and stuff that comes up in the market. There's still the Oracle situation, all this data centers. There's people preaching that, and I get it 100%. I think it's still I just think it's too soon to say that like data centers have overrun their overrun the race here, and there's just not enough track. I don't know that's. I think it's too early, especially going into this new year here. But God bless, each to his own. And I love hearing. I love listening to investors. I love that's the fun of investing. We all get to see different sides, different shades of the market right now, and we see different things. But this is great. This is great. So be prepared. Now, I want to talk about Big Bear first and then clean up with Palantir here. So, obviously, right now, if you know, I talked about this yesterday, but Big Bear right now, today, December 18th, this is the last day to vote for them to get this money. Now, obviously, Kevin released a little memo today. You can go on Big Bear's website and read it. Is essentially asking for people to vote for this because Big Bear is saying, hey, we need equity, we need cash, we need money. And saying we're going to use this to better the company, our software, everything. And obviously they're talking about, the acquisition of Sage too. So, this is where the argument starts with investors. And I get both sides of the table here, both sides yelling at each other and, throwing bottles at each other. I get it. For each side to make an argument of what's going on here, the bad, the good, why I said this on the thumbnail is that obviously, Kevin, CEO, coming out, and this is honestly, it's taken all year for Kevin to be a little more open with investors as the CEO. We're finally starting to hear more kind of emotions with what's going on at Big Bear right now. And two, it's been easy to track here that Big Bear's done a lot of cleanup of the company this year. So right now, Kevin releasing this, and you can read it here. I'm not going to read it everything here, but essentially, asking for, your vote asking for people to do this and saying, like, we're going to reallocate this money back in the company. I'm telling you where we're going to put it. This is what we're doing. And two, it comes right on the cuff here of this huge defense bill just getting passed with Trump, which I think it's more than obvious, Big Bear is relying on that because, Kevin came out here in Q3 and said, hey, this big, beautiful bill that just got passed, we're expecting to get more government contracts, border security. We're expecting to get some, bigger and better deals here. And, two, for them acquiring this Sage, software, what they're doing, what it is, I think this is clear direction of them saying, hey, we need this to get bigger and better deals. We need this to survive, to set ourselves apart from competition out there. And right now, this is them asking investors. So what is the bad and what is the good for this? Obviously, the outlook on this, the long-term outlook, what this could look like for, 6 months from now. Okay, this happens. They win the vote. They get the vote. The shares, more shares. They take money. Big Bear has money now. They have a lot more capital and they can use it how they want to use it. Okay, well, obviously that will put a setback in the share price. That's kind of where it's at. So, this is really more of a conversation for long-term investors. How much longer are you willing to wait for Big Bear to start to receive bigger deals, better deals, finances come out better here? That's really the conversation here for day traders, for swing traders, for people that are kind of like, I'll come back to Big Bear when stuff actually starts really happening over here. You may not care about this at all. This is just not a conversation for you, and that's understandable. But, this is where, growth with a company, this is where hard decisions are made. And obviously, you don't know whose vote's going to matter. Are they going to pull this off? Are they not going to pull this off? I'm kind of I got to be honest, because people are going to ask, where am I at with this decision? I'm for Big Bear for the long run. So, if Big Bear is saying, hey, we need this money, this is where we're wanting to spend it, this is what, we want here, I'm kind of in the ballpark of, okay, give it to them. Now it's going to be a bit of a mess here at first, I'm not going to lie to you, but this could clean up fast. This could be a shock, and it comes at a bad moment too, where we, if this wasn't happening, Big Bear could, take part in a nice rally here for a bigger push here. With that, I still think Big Bear will do well here in a push in the rally, if we can see a Christmas, miracle happen here. But, this is gonna be a little bit of a moment here where Big Bear is gonna have to start to show some really good numbers going into the new year. Can Big Bear get these government contracts is talking about? Can Big Bear start to clean up quarterlies better here? I definitely think these things are possible 100% going into 2026. And, Big Bear, I will say, being an investor with Big Bear last year compared to now, Kevin lately, the last months here, has been a lot more open with investors. And I don't know if, someone sent him a video of me yelling at him, telling him to be more open with investors. I don't know, but I swear he may have heard, and maybe there's other people saying this. I don't know. But, he's doing what we want. We need companies do better. Stocks will perform better when CEOs talk to investors, when they're open with investors, when they're just, straightforward with them. I believe a lot of companies out there there's a piece of those companies that do well because they have CEOs that are open with investors. They talk to the investor. They know who to talk to. And when they're open and they're more transparent with their company, what's going on, where they're allocating money at, where they need money, where they're going to get money, all this kind of stuff, it's better. If I'm putting a ton of money in an investment, I want to know what's going on. Whether I'm putting $5 or $5,000 in a investment, obviously $5,000, I need to know I need to know what's going on here for if I'm taking this long walk with you. So, right now, as I'm releasing this video and me talking here, the vote is being taken right now. And I don't know what we're going to wake up to tomorrow. It's going to be interesting how this comes out here. It's going to be very interesting. So we will see. For 2026, I'm still very bullish for Big Bear to clean up their act, to get deals, to move in the beautiful big direction here. I really am. So, this is where it's hard to really say where we could see Big Bear place itself in this, Christmas push. It's kind of misinformation, whatever I say right now, because I don't know what this vote's going to be. How shocking is this vote going to be or not going to be to the stock share price at this moment? We're going to have to wake up Friday and see what happens here and go into Monday. That's going to be a real big thing here, what we're going to, have to deal with. Now, friends, talking about the beast itself, Palantir here, I don't know. I don't really know who is still very bullish on Palantir when it comes to the mass here. I think Tom Lee and Jeremy, last time I checked in on them, kind of, people that I've watched for years, kind of my gurus, but they're still very much in this place right now that Palantir's kind of, Dan I's theory that, even Tom Lee talking openly about Palantir here, that, there's still a lot to come here. And I think that's kind of just what we have to go off on right now. I completely understand where people are, scared of Palantir right now for many different reasons. For reasons of like, it's way too expensive. It trades way too high compared to where it needs to be mathematically, market cap, all that, get that. But two, there is this fright that like, man, this guy over here told me it's going to sell down to $100, or this guy over here told me it's going to sell down to, 120. I don't see that happening. Here's the thing that's shocking about Palantir right now, for many different reasons. Right now Palantir is still getting deals. This is still actively happening. It happened last week. They extended one deal and they received a whole nother deal. I mean, those two deals alone were worth, what some companies make beyond what some companies make an entire year. Okay, so you have that. Okay. And that was just those two. So this is where we look at Q4 to wrap up all of this year, where it could just be like insane growth. Now, we've seen massive growth this year, and I don't know why people can't believe that, this can kind of continue. This can kind of just move right into 2026, chugging along here. And by Q4, Palantir easily could be back up in $200 range. I don't think that's crazy at all, because you got to look on the calendar where we're going to meet here with quarterlies with Palantir. Palantir is going to be releasing their quarterlies, kind of in the mix here with a lot of the mag. And what do we know? We know the mag is going to nail quarterlies. It's going to keep the whole market happy, satisfied. There's no way the mag is going to miss here, because we're in Christmas season. They're taking in all this money right now. Okay. Two, January, to help January, February are, when we start to get into the quarterly, phase here, are we dealing with a rate cut? Do we think the Feds will actually do a rate cut in January, maybe February? I don't know. That could be another, shot of steroids into the market here. So saying all that, Palantir has plenty of ammunition just to shock the culture of, the market right now, where it could just easily move back into this, 210, 215, 220 zone, and that's how crazy it is. Now, pushing this conversation further, can Palantir, by Q1, Q2, Q3, keep escalating on quarterly growth here, keep receiving crazy deals to where this is where the fear, this other part of this fear sets in, where it's like, maybe I should just buy in. Maybe I should just buy at 180. Maybe I should buy at 200. Maybe if I buy at 200, I'll be in profit zone by July, where I can, swing out of it. Or, by Q4, does this get even more ridiculous, where we see Palantir run up into almost 300 or pass over $300? Like 301. Does it touch it at one point? And when I say Q4, that's in the beginning of 2027. So that's, a year and more, it's a year and a month or two out from now. I wouldn't bet against this situation right now. I think it's highly dangerous to go against Palantir. And two, what would be one of the most shocking things for Palantir right now? Really think about this. One of the most shocking things that could happen with Palantir right now, besides the missing quarterlies, which there's nothing like that we're looking at right now. One of the biggest shocking things that would happen here is that they don't double, triple their quarterlies. You know, that they just come out with a quarterly maybe by Q1, Q2, that's just like 10, 15% over. You know, where it's just like it's a normal quarterly for a normal company. That right there, as funny as that sounds, that would send a shockwave into Palantir where people would go like, "Oh my God, they didn't get triple what we thought they were going to get." That would, Palantir would probably see a decent sell-off, but, in the long run, it would climb back up too because, they still killed quarterlies, but it wasn't like this monstrous beatdown of what expectation was supposed to be. So it's an interesting situation. We're well into range here where a lot of us thought Palantir could go here. And, I'm just sitting back as of a lover and a fan of the stock market, and I'm just watching it. I'm just watching it because it's so interesting watching this company just, steamroll over, these people that think it's not going to continue. It could continue. It could just continue for a long time here. Friends, I'm going to wish all of you the best of luck. I really do mean that. I am excited. This could be the last this could be it. This could be the news we need to see the market kind of pick up the pace here, start to come alive again. Maybe this is what the S&P 500 needed to hit a 7,000 point range. We'll see. Friends, take care of yourself, and I will talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.